Today's episode is a very special one. You see, I was able to talk with Frank McCarthy. He's the guy who bought my Volkswagen Convertible. First, it was Vicki Brock Watson's first ride. Then I bought it from her, and it was my first ride. And finally, I sold it to Frank, which was his first ride. So this episode kind of completes the ownership circle of first rides. Do you remember your first ride? You know, the first mode of transportation that gave you a newfound freedom when you were younger. Stick with me for a few minutes while I go back in time with my guest and explore some great memories. Welcome to My First Ride podcast. I'm your host, Gary Neidert. Today I'm talking with Frank McCarthy. His first ride was a 1964 green Volkswagen Convertible. But wait, my first ride was a 64 green Volkswagen Convertible. What gives? Well, Frank was the third person for that vehicle to become a first ride for. You see, he bought the Volkswagen for me after I got another car. And we're going to talk about his first ride experience with the VW. So listen up, because you're going to enjoy Frank's first ride story. So let's get right on into it. So Frank, welcome to My First Ride podcast. It's great to have you on the program.
Great to be here.
Yeah. So you survived all the rain, huh?
We have, yeah, so far.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to hear more about your first ride with VW. But first, tell us a little bit about yourself and what's been keeping you busy these last few days, few years since high school.
Well, just working and raising a family. We have 3 kids. They're a daughter and twin sons. And most of the time it's just been working, trying to support them.
Yeah.
But they're all grown and on their own now. We have 7 grandkids. So everything's good.
How do you keep up with 7 grandkids?
Well, some of them don't live around here.
Okay.
2 of them are, one's in college and one's in high school, and the 3 of the others are, they're all tied up in school and everything. So we see them when we can.
Yeah. Well, I've got 3, and they live like 5 minutes from me, and it keeps us pretty busy just keeping up with them and all the stuff that they're doing. So anyway,
yeah.
Well, that's cool. So, well, let's get on in and start talking about. We'll start talking about the Volkswagen in a minute, but well, for the people that are watching, Frank and I did this a couple of weeks ago. We tried to make a recording, but somehow I failed on my end, and it didn't record. So we're doing this all over again. But in our conversation a couple of weeks ago, Frank was telling me about he really grew up in Bells mostly, and then moved to Denison. So could you tell me a little bit about that, about growing up in Bells and then moving to Denison, and what it was like growing up in Denison after you moved here?
Well, the good thing about living in a small town is that you know everybody.
Yeah.
The bad thing about living in a small town is everybody knows you.
Yeah.
So it was fun. It was good. But my mom graduated from college, and we were able to purchase a better house, and we moved to Denison.
Yeah.
And she started teaching school. So that was fun. Most of my memories were good memories. I don't really remember any bad memories there.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of good friends there, and still I consider them closer friends than what I went to high school. So I went from Denison, went from a class of 35 to a class of over 350.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a culture shock for me.
Yeah.
So I was a little intimidated, I think, by a lot of things. So, but I
Yeah.
survived both of them.
Yeah. Where did your mother teach school? What
She
school?
taught school at, for the most part, Perrin. When the Air Force Base closed,
Yeah.
they had opened a school up there, and she taught out there, which was really good because it was so far away that administration didn't come out there and bother them any. So they were pretty much given a free reign to teach. So
Yeah.
that was good. She enjoyed teaching out there,
Yeah.
and she taught out there for several years.
Yeah. Huh? Yeah. I remember well, you remember Keith Brock, his dad worked for the civil service at Perrin Air Force Base. And Keith moved when the Air Force Base closed, and 70 or 71, whenever that was, 70. And so after the base closed, I was, they finally opened it up where people could drive around out there, and I'd drive around, I'd, go by the school and just all over that place. And so it was pretty cool out there.
Yeah.
That was pretty neat. So did she retire from out at,
Yeah,
out
she
there,
taught and she taught first grade most of the times. And then as she got older, she realized it was harder to get down on, in the floor with the first graders. So she saw somebody teaching third grade, and they were sitting at a desk, and she thought, well, that's wonderful. I could do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But my father passed away in '88,
Yeah.
and then she met somebody that they were neighbors growing up, but he was 17 and she was 12.
Oh, wow.
But their families grew up together,
Yeah.
and so they met up again at a class reunion for a little school called Oak Ridge School.
Yeah.
It's out east of Denison, out by Carpenter's Bluff Bridge. And they met up, and within 3 months they were married. And,
oh, wow.
So she had a birthday on one day, on a Thursday. She retired on a Friday and got married on a Saturday.
Oh my gosh. Whole lot of life changes at one time.
It was, yeah.
Now, I don't remember, did you have a car before you bought the Volkswagen?
No, we just lived 2 blocks from school, so I just walked to school.
Yeah.
And so I did not have a car. I was pestering my dad for me to buy one. And so we finally got the bug. But my first memories of that car was watching it run down the street in front of my house and watching newspapers fly out the top of it because you were headed paper route.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was a cool car.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun being able to try to drive and throw papers at the same time.
Yeah, and change gears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when you turned 16, were you the kind of guy that wanted to go get the driver's license that day, the day you turned 16, or was it that big of a deal to you?
I was a little nervous about it, so I probably waited a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Then I finally I got to get this done.
Yeah.
And so I went and took my driving test and passed.
Yeah.
And but my mom had a 71 Mustang, but it was a pretty bare bones car, but it looked cool. And so that was fine. I could borrow it whenever I wanted to.
Yeah.
So if I had a date, I could borrow it.
Yeah. Oh, that was neat. Yeah. Seemed like you said it was yellow, kind of a orange.
Yeah,
yellow?
kind of a yellowish orange. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I vaguely remember seeing it parked on the street. And,
those. One time, that car that was sitting in the curb, and it was raining real hard, and water was running down on those brakes, and they were drum brakes. And I was driving. I took it home, and I hit the brakes to turn right, and the car. I didn't have to turn the steering wheel, and it turned.
Oh man.
So people talk about cars in the good old days, but that car was it had a lot to be desired.
Yeah. Well, I've been thinking about, since we talked a couple of weeks ago, I thought about the Volkswagen, and I had to drive up to Denison on this past Thursday, and I just thinking about the way that cars are today. They're a lot more comfortable to drive and to ride in. And
Yeah.
I've got a 2000 Toyota pickup, and I go up Highway 69 back and forth to Denison. If I would have been driving the truck the other day, it just, because the road's so bumpy, it just jarred my teeth. And so, but anyway, yeah. So yeah, the nostalgia thing of thinking back on our cars and stuff back 50 years ago. That's hard to say 50 years ago. But to think back on those things, it's, I don't know that I'd want to have a car from back then, but anyway. So, what was it that led up to buying the VW? Were you just wanting to have a car of your own that you could use all the time, or what was it?
I just wouldn't have a car of my own, one that I could afford, and so that was it. It was pretty much a utilitarian vehicle. I think that's one thing that Germany wanted, was a very basic car. I think what's Volkswagen, I think it stands for, was it car people, or I can't remember, but it was for the regular common people.
Yeah.
And they were pretty inexpensive then. And but it was a fun little car. The like I told you a couple of weeks ago, when there's a valve down between the seats, if you open that up, it would take heat off the engine, and then it would you get a burn on your ankle, but it also let the heat migrate up to the from the corners. It had the corners of the windshield, so that was defroster, and it wasn't much of a defroster because there was no fan. It was just air coming up off the motor.
Yeah.
So it was one time I was going to work, and it was a frosty morning. We were married, and I was going to go to work, and I didn't take the time to scrape the frost off the windshield real good. So it took a while for that frost it took a while for that motor to melt that ice off the frost off the windshield. So I was driving like a tank. I think I had about 6 inches I could see out of, and I was pretty stupid, but thankfully nothing happened.
Yeah, I remember. I think I carried a towel with me to wipe the inside of the windshield down.
Yeah.
I don't want to get condensation on there.
Yeah,
because it did that a lot.
Yeah, and the windshield washers were pneumatic, and they ran off of the spare tire air, and you had to make sure your spare tire was aired up to keep the windshield washers going.
Yeah.
So it was, but it was a fun little car, and like I say, it handled good on snow.
Yeah.
And so we had fun with it, driving it around, and it was a fun little car to drive. And I wish I had it, but I wish I'd had it fixed up in mint condition. It would probably be worth quite a bit of money.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've looked at the prices of both the VW Bugs and the Carmen Gias, and to get something that's it doesn't have to be restored back to new condition, but just something that's drivable and looks decent. We're talking $9,000, $10,000, $12,000 for something like that. Yeah. And I was amazed at how much those things are worth now. Do you remember Paige Rudig?
I remember her. Yeah.
Yeah. Her mother, and I think she was a school teacher.
She taught French.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Her mother had a red Carmen Ghia convertible.
Oh, cool.
Do you remember that?
I do not. It
Oh,
may, yeah, but
that would have been a cool car to have.
it would have been, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and how did you find out about the Volkswagen being for sale?
I don't remember. Maybe you mentioned it to me or something. Uh, but I know when I bought it and I saw your mom at church, I remember she said that you were kind of depressed because you'd sold your car.
Yeah, it's funny. I was thinking of thinking about all that recently, and I have this picture in my mind looking out the back door of my parents' house, and the Volkswagen was backed up. Where you look out the door, you see the back end of it, and I can still see that in my mind. So, but it was time for it was time for you to buy that and make it your
That's
first
right.
ride.
That's
So,
right.
so
It,
what are some other details you remember about it?
oh, let's see. Uh, well, the motor, it was a 6-volt battery.
Hmm.
And if it got down below 30 degrees, it wouldn't start. So I had to keep a drop light plugged up at home,
Uh-huh.
and I'd back up the house and I'd put the drop light in there to keep the engine, the oil uh, thin enough where it would start in the morning.
Yeah.
So that was a little disconcerting sometimes because sometimes it's about 30 is the high. So
Yeah.
I would be at work and it would be 30 degrees, and sometimes it would just barely start.
Did you ever have, well, when it was just, the temperature was higher, did you ever have trouble with getting it started at all? Or did it start
No,
right up?
it'd start right up. Yeah. No, I never
Well,
had any problems with it except for when it was a little chilly.
yeah. Whenever I talked with Vicky Brock, who was the first owner of the Volkswagen, well,
Uh-huh.
she wasn't the absolute first owner. She was the owner that I bought it from. But she told me that they always had trouble trying to start the car, and I thought, well, I don't ever remember having trouble getting it started. So
Yeah.
I've been kind of curious about that since I talked to her. But so any other things that you remember? Any kind? Did you used to go just riding around like out to the lake or anything like that?
Oh, I don't know because I bought it probably in the summer and got married in February the next year. So,
Yeah.
uh, and so I probably did not do a lot of running around. I know I was working uh, a lot. It seemed like trying, just working, and we probably did do some running around with it. And,
Yeah.
but I can't remember any specific things as far as that. I remember just riding the top down, enjoying the wind in your hair.
Yeah.
Uh, so that was a fun time.
Yeah. I was going to ask about that if you put the top down very often. So that's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, yeah. Put the top down quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a lot of fun to, especially on those days when it was like in springtime, where it's
Yes.
just warm enough to where you don't get chilled with the
Hmm.
top down.
Yeah.
And during the summer, it wound up getting too hot because of the black seats and all that kind
Oh
of thing.
yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, is there a particular memory that comes to mind that um, of something that you did or you and Jennifer did going somewhere in the car that was really a fun time that you remember?
Well, we drove it on our honeymoon up to a lodge up at Lake Eufaula up by McAllister, Oklahoma, and
Yeah.
we drove it up there. And on our honeymoon, we hid the car in a friend's garage so nobody could uh, decorate it up. And so then we just drove up there, which was about 2.5 hours. There's a
Yeah.
big long hill going up to the as you leave McAllister, there's a pretty good sized hill, and it seemed like the bug was having trouble getting up that hill,
Yeah.
but it was just slowing down.
Yeah. I used to drive it like I thought it was a Porsche. And drove it as fast as I could. I tried not to abuse it, but I did drive it as fast as I could. But you had said that you liked the way that it handled.
Yeah, it handled real well. Yeah, it did handle well. And I never have really liked big muscle cars. It's just like, but I did like something that handled real well. So that's why later on we bought a Miata.
Yeah.
And so I love the way those handle. And it does kind of remind me of those things. Small car, really easy to maneuver.
Yeah.
I love doing U-turns and just, come up to a divided light or a divided highway and you're at a stoplight and you need to go the other way. Just turn it so fast. And the VW is that way too. Just turn the steering wheel. And it was a cool steering wheel. I remember it was a wooden wheel.
Yeah.
And so it was a cool little car.
Well, according to Vicky Brock, that the Volkswagen was purchased in Germany by a serviceman. I don't know if he's Air Force or Army or what, serviceman. And apparently he added all the extra stuff like the wooden steering wheel.
Oh, really? Okay.
And the wooden gear shift knob and that little tray that was underneath.
Oh, okay.
The
wicker type. Yeah.
Yeah. And the chrome wheels. I never, ever saw a Volkswagen with chrome wheels and chrome hubcaps like that.
Yeah, those were pretty wheels.
Yeah. That's what made the car look so good.
I think you're right there.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that he did. Oh, the door handle, the window cranks. I think there were wooden knobs on the window cranks.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I asked you about this the other day. I'm gonna ask it again. But that Blaupunkt radio.
Oh yeah.
It never did really work right, did it?
No, it didn't. As a matter of fact, one time we were living in a little house out in the country, and just parked in the front yard. And all of a sudden, I heard noise coming out of that car at 1 o'clock in the morning, and the radio just decided it would work. But that was funny.
Yeah, I tried all kinds of ways to get it to work. It never did work for me. So
I know it had an oil pressure gauge, and I know that if you took a really hard turn to one side, I guess all the oil went over from that sensor. It went to the other side of the car, and the oil pressure light would come on. And at first, it made me work. It scared me, but then I realized it's just because I took the corner too fast.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Did you ever put any kind of a radio in it that worked?
No, never did. Just yeah.
Well, it sounds kind of like the Volkswagen kind of influenced the buying of the Miatas.
It did because I say I like a car that handles real well. Matter of fact, when the twin sons, they were going to go to college. One was going to go locally, and the other one was going to go off, and they shared a car in college or in high school. So we decided to buy a used car from me, and that one was going to drive the car that they had, and the other one would drive the pickup. And so I came home from work one day, and there's this little red NA type Miata sitting in the carport, and I said, "Whose is that?" And she says, "It's yours if you want it." And I thought, well, that's a stupid question. So, as a matter of fact, I got a license plate cover. It says, "Have you hugged a curve today?" License plate frame.
Yeah.
And I got a gear shift knob from a guy that makes custom gear shift knobs, and it says "Hug a curve." So, and I still have it. And when that car goes, that knob stays with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the license plate frame does too.
Well, tell me a little bit about, you'd mentioned this. You all took a trip to, was it North Carolina or South Carolina?
Yes. Yeah. We've been lots of places in that little Miata. We've been to Jennifer has a brother that lives in North Carolina, and we went up there to see him. There's a road up there called Tail of the Dragon.
Yeah.
And it's 318 curves and 11 miles. You never get out of third gear. A lot of motorcycles around, and it's a lot of fun to do that. We've been 1 year. The saying is you can take you go on vacation, you take twice as much money and half as many clothes. But with the Miata, that you're forced to do the clothes part. But we had enough clothes packed in the trunk of that Miata to last us 2 weeks. And we went to Yellowstone and up to Glacier, and we were just a little ways away from Canada. So we decided we're just going to go up there just to say we've driven to Canada.
Yeah.
And I was disappointed they didn't stamp my passport, but we had a fun trip, and that was a really fun trip.
Well, on that Tail of the Dragon, I saw something the other day where, people driving up and down the road where there's motorcycles or cars, there's a bunch of photographers that will take pictures of people driving by. Did y'all get a picture taken?
No, we had a picture taken, but we didn't buy it. But there's a guy sitting at one corner, and he's taking pictures of everybody. You can go by and look at yourself. Yeah. And you could purchase your picture if you wanted to. There's a tree up there for the motorcycles called the Tree of Shame, and it has motorcycle parts nailed all over it.
Oh man!
So it's a pretty place.
Yeah,
and a fun ride.
Yeah. When was the last time y'all were up there?
On that, well, we only were with her once, but it was fun. We were up on the Blue Ridge Parkway in 2020. Yeah, in 2020 we went up there.
Yeah.
So it's a real pretty drive, and we were in my truck and not the car though.
Yeah.
So that kind of took some of the fun out of it.
Yeah. So was it pretty comfortable in the Miata traveling that long of a distance?
It is. Now that I'm older, it's a little, and the car got smaller. The NA was, and then the NB and NC were just a little bit bigger. The latest style, the ND, they made it a little smaller, so it is a little bit harder to get in and out of. Probably because I'm older and I have a belly to get in and out of too. But it's a fun car.
There was one time
we went to.
Go ahead.
Well, we went to Kentucky and went to see once, and that it was fine. I mean, I had a friend that picked him up to take him someplace, and his remark was, "When do you feel like you're not going to die?" So anyway, it's a fun little car.
Yeah. There was years ago, a company I worked for at the time, their office was in Houston, but I got to work from home. I started working from home in 97, all the way up until 2021. And anyway, I had to go down there for like a Christmas party or something like that. And one of the ladies that worked there had a Porsche Boxster, little, it was 2-seater, little bitty car.
Yeah.
And I'd never been in one. And, I was looking at the car and asking all kinds of questions. And she said, well, hop in and I'll take you up there to the restaurant where we're going to go. So, okay. I don't know that I could do something like that because I had such a hard time folding up to get in the car. And and I've seen a guy is on Facebook. This guy had retired. He bought something like a Ferrari or something along those lines. He got in the car, but he couldn't get out of it. And he literally had to crawl over the side and crawl out on the concrete before he could get up. And I'm going, I kind of think that would be me. So, but anyway, but they're still fun. Little cars are
They
still
are.
fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I say, we've driven, I think the most we've ever driven in it is about 700 miles in one day. I mean, it's a comfortable little car once you get in, but it was a fun little. They're fun little cars.
Yeah.
And my dad had a '64 Triumph
Oh, yeah.
and an MG3.
Uh huh.
He had a TR3
Uh huh.
and he had an MG, and so I've always liked little bitty, little cars. So
Yeah. Well,
it was
if you
fun.
had the chance to, let's say that somehow, some way, somebody contacted you and said, "Hey, Frank, I found the Volkswagen that you used to own. It's for sale. Would you want to buy it back?"
Probably not. Well, it's because the new cars are so much better put together.
Yeah.
Uh, and that the car is so underpowered. I mean, you couldn't, that hill as you leave in Sherman, as you're going up to Johnson and Johnson and TI, those two hills, it was struggling to get up the top of those hills. You had to
Yeah.
get a running start. So,
Yeah.
but it was fun, and I didn't think about anything about it. But looking back, I thought, man, that car was really underpowered. I think it probably had like 60 horsepower. So,
It actually had less than that. It had,
oh
well,
no,
I thought it had 40. And then there was something I
uh-huh.
read that it had 36. So either way, that's not very much horsepower for that car.
No, it's
But
not. No.
yeah,
But
yeah,
who cares? They're fun to drive.
yeah. And like you said, it at the time, it didn't really matter. Didn't really think about it because we didn't have anything else to compare to.
Well, that's true. In your first car, it's like, man, I have a car. That
Yeah,
was the most important part.
yeah,
I didn't have to borrow my parents' car.
yeah. Just the freedom to be able to hop in it and go. And
Hmm. Yeah.
yeah, I used to go out to Lake Texoma, drive out there just to drive out there, and
Uh-huh.
just and to Waterloo Lake and Loy Lake, and just drive around town. And
Yeah.
I'm like you. I don't know that I would want to get it back. It would require a whole lot of money to fix it up the way that where it would be comfortable to drive.
Yes. Yeah, it
Yeah.
would. Yeah.
Now I've seen people do a Subaru motor in a Volkswagen,
Oh,
and
okay.
and that would, I mean, some of those I think are 200 plus horsepower. I don't know, but it's
Goodness.
the they're a flat 4 or flat 6,
Hmm.
similar to the Volkswagen. And so if it had that much horsepower, it could be it could be a lot of fun.
It could be to
Yeah.
be more fun you could legally have.
Yeah. Yeah. Was there anything else that you could think of that you'd want to share about the Volkswagen?
No, I think it was. I'd say you didn't really think about what it about anything as far as the speed or anything like that. It was just it was my car, and so I could get. I had freedom. I had so anyway, that was fun, and
Yeah.
I enjoyed the little car.
When you got rid of it, did you trade it in or did you sell it to an individual?
I sold it to an individual. I don't remember how much I got for it, and I don't remember who bought it, but I think we just decided to sell it.
Yeah.
And so I think we had our daughter was born, and we needed a little bit bigger car.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's not a good
so
family car.
no, it's not.
Yeah. Did you ever put a muffler on there? Or did you?
I did have to put a muffler.
You did. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I say everybody when I was coming out here to pick up Jennifer at her house, she said she could hear me coming, and I didn't think anything about it. And after we got married, I had to go get an inspection sticker, and they wouldn't pass it unless they put a new muffler on it.
Oh, really?
So yeah.
Did you leave
But,
the little chrome tips in?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did that. Yeah. But it was kind of strange. I mean, I was shocked that I had to go buy a new muffler. And it's
Yeah.
probably cost me I think it cost me $75. I'm like, golly, that's a
Yeah.
lot of money.
Yeah.
And it was in 1974.
Yeah. Well, I guess over the years that, it probably just rusted out just because
Yeah.
of age. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been 10 years old. So
it would be interesting to know whatever happened to it. If it's still on the road or in a pasture rotting away or
yeah.
crushed
Yeah,
and
it
melted
would.
down. No,
Yeah.
I don't want to know about crushed and melted down. So
Yeah. No, we won't talk about that.
yeah. Well, this has been good. I appreciate you taking the time to reminisce with me about the Volkswagen. So this kind of completes the cycle of
Okay.
the first ride
Yeah.
thing with that Volkswagen. So I
Yeah.
very much appreciate this. So
Yeah.
thanks for taking the time out of your schedule to be on today's episode. So
Okay. Well, it has
yeah,
been fun. I
yeah,
have to be sure and watch it.
yeah, yeah. What's coming up next on My First Ride? I'm constantly searching for people that would enjoy telling the stories of their first rides and how their lives were influenced by them. The story behind the story. And I bet you probably know someone that would be a great guest for My First Ride podcast, right? Well, let me know a little bit about them and their story. Same goes for you. Let me know a little bit about you and your story. And what about telling your first ride story? Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more. Subscribe to the podcast and listen to the previous episodes of My First Ride podcast. And of course, you can also go to myfirstridepodcast.com. One final thought. You may not have your first ride, but you still have the memories. It's time to share them. Contact me if you have any questions regarding today's podcast or you'd like to be a guest on My First Ride podcast. Email me at myfirstridepodcast@gmail.com. I'm Gary Neidert, and you've just experienced My First Ride podcast. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.